Ingenious and innovative, that's the image Dyson likes to project to its customers. Famed for groundbreaking designs of vacuums and air purifiers, Dyson is a household name globally and a flagship company in Britain.
Here we are in a Dyson demo store where you can try out our technology.
Founded by inventor Sir James Dyson, one of Britain's richest men. Sir James controversially moved much of Dyson's production from the UK to Southeast Asia 20 years ago, reducing costs and maximising profits.
We do the research and development, we put huge amounts of money into it, and it has a long-term payback.
But behind the professional image Dyson likes to portray, there's a dark side to its supply chain, with claims of exploitation, intimidation and even torture.
फेरि रोक्ने अनि फेरि पिट्ने ओइसरी पिट्यो अनि ठुलो एक किसिमको मनमा चाहिँ डर लागिराखेको थियो मलाई.
Tonight, we can reveal that more than a dozen workers are taking legal action against Dyson, claiming a series of labour abuses and exploitation at a supplier in Malaysia that makes its vacuum cleaners. There are claims of unlawful working conditions, a false imprisonment of squalid living conditions. Workers who did speak out have told us they were threatened by the supplier and even tortured by the police.
Dyson depicts itself as a very responsible company and ethical, so they should have known what was happening.
Johor Bahru, a modern Malaysian city with high-tech industry at the heart of its economy. It's home to ATA IMS, one of Southeast Asia's leading electronics companies. Dyson is by far its biggest customer. It churns out millions of products and components each year for the technology giant, ranging from cyclone bagless vacuum cleaners to air purifier fans. The majority of the workforce on these production lines are migrant workers from poorer Asian countries, mostly Bangladesh and Nepal. Many paid hefty recruitment fees to get their jobs. Dan Kumar Limbu travelled from Nepal to Malaysia 10 years ago. He worked in quality control at ATA Industrial, part of the ATA IMS empire.
मैले जब आर्ट इन्डस्ट्रियलमा काम गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ म्याक्सिमम पार्टहरु चाहिँ डाइसनको पार्टहरु हुन्थे.
Workers at ATA earn a basic wage of just £9 per day. But pay slips revealed some staff clocking up to 135 hours of overtime, in excess of the maximum allowed under Malaysian law.
दिनको 12 घण्टा र हप्ताको 7 दिन र महिनाको 30 दिन काम गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब एकदमै धेरै कामको प्रेसर हुन्छ अनि निन्द्रा राम्रोसँग पुगेको हुँदैन अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ शरीर थकान हुन्छ.
Living conditions for migrant workers in Malaysia are also infamously tough. Footage and photographs we've seen from last spring show some ATA workers crammed into one dormitory with up to 65 people. This video was verified by 4 witnesses who spoke to Channel 4 News. It's alleged many didn't have valid visas to work in Malaysia and feared deportation. This footage, not independently verified, was posted online by an ATA worker. It purportedly shows illegal workers in 2019 fleeing an ATA industrial factory in blind panic when inspectors arrived.
We've seen emails and documents revealing that Dyson was warned about the conditions at ATA Industrial as early as November 2019. A labour rights activist named Andy Hall wrote to the company alleging forced working conditions. He followed this up on numerous occasions, yet was told by Dyson that the claims were factually incorrect. Last year, Mr Hall followed up with further detailed information, alleging squalid accommodation and workers living in fear. The allegations were so serious that an investigation was launched by US Customs and Border Protection.
On the 30th of April last year, Dyson's Global Director of Sustainability, Tom Crawford, responded to Andy Hall. We treat matters of supply chain worker welfare, including ethical living conditions and health and safety, with the utmost importance. Thank you for highlighting these matters, which we are following up. But just weeks later, when details of the conditions at ATA Industrial were reported by the Sunday Mirror, Dyson's PR operation went into overdrive. The company told media it did not recognise the allegations and there was no evidence, insisting the report gave an inaccurate impression of conditions in Dyson's supply chain. Dyson issued a notice to the media calling the report false and defamatory and subject to a legal complaint. The Sunday Mirror later published a partial correction.
Dyson told us it did investigate Mr. Hall's claims promptly. Between November 2019 and June last year, they conducted 5 audits of ATA, but none of them identified any significant issues that couldn't be remedied quickly. They also stated that the overcrowded hostel in the video was not on the list of accommodation provided to them by ATA, and so wasn't inspected by auditors.
Meanwhile, in Malaysia, ATA began to hunt for the whistleblowers. Mr. Limbu was under suspicion. After his phone was seized during a shift, he found an unexpected visitor waiting for him at his hostel.
पार्क गरिराख्नु भएको रहेछ मासतिर अनि त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ ड्राइभरको रूपमा चाहिँ एकजना मेरो म्यानेजर हुनुहुन्थ्यो अनि उहाँले ढोका खोलिदिनु भयो अनि म त्यहाँभित्र पसेँ त स्योर भयो पुलिस स्टेसन लगिराखेको छ जे हुन्छ अब त्यही हुने होला भनेर म पनि चुपै लागेर बसेँ
At the police station, Mr. Limbu claims he was interrogated by a plainclothes officer who asked for details about his links to labour rights activists, insisting he must have been paid to provide information about the factory.
पिट्न सुरु गरे उनीहरूले किताबहरूले यसरी बसेको ठाउँमा लात्ताले अनि उनीहरूले हिर्काउन थाले त्यसमा अब मैले चाहिँ पैसाको लागि होइन मैले भने अनि तैले पैसाकै लागि गरेको हो कसरी नभए यति ठुलो इन्फर्मेसन तैले लिक गर्न सक्छस्
Mr. Limbu says he was then taken into a smaller room by the same police officer.
अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ फेरि क्वेशन गर्यो अनि पिट्यो अनि म आया भनेर दुखेर मैले कराउँदाखेरि चाहिँ मेरो घुँडामा फेरि अनि टेक्यो उसले घुँडामा टेकेर फेरि पाइपले पैतालामा हिर्कायो फेरि रोक्ने अनि फेरि पिट्ने यसरी पिट्यो अनि कहिलेसम्म यिनीहरूले मलाई जेलमा छोड्ने होला यसरी पिट्दै राख्ने होला भन्ने चाहिँ एउटा ठुलो एक किसिमको मनमा चाहिँ डर लागिराखेको थियो मलाई
Despite the alleged beatings, Mr. Limbu says he refused to sign a confession. He claims police then called ATA Industrial's Chief Operating Officer, Balachandran Govindasamy, or Bala, to come to the station.
तँलाई आजीवन जेल चाहिँ सडाइदिन्छु भनेर भन्यो अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ हामीलाई सहयोग गर यदि तैँले यो हामीलाई सपोर्ट गरिस् हामीलाई यो स्टेटमेन्ट दिन सहयोग गरिस् भने चाहिँ हामी तँलाई निकालेर लान्छौं
Mr. Limbu says under duress he signed a statement that he received 4,000 ringgit, about £700, from labour rights activists to leak information about the ATA factory. Only then was he allowed to return to his hostel. The next day, Mr. Limbu says he was given new instructions by Bala to feed misleading information back to the labour rights activists, presenting ATA in a positive light.
उनीहरूले के सोच्छ त्यसको क्वेशन त्यो चाहिँ के सोच्छ त्यो चाहिँ मलाई भन अनि म चाहिँ के भन्नुपर्ने हो अनि त्यो चाहिँ म तँलाई भन्छु
A month later, Mr. Limbu fled Malaysia without his passport. He only made it home with help from the Nepalese embassy. ATA did confirm that they took Mr. Limbu to the police station, but deny he was beaten. They say they engaged a law firm to investigate his allegations and found them unjustified and unsubstantiated and unlikely to have taken place. ATA say claims against Balachandran Govindasamy and other managers are preposterous. The Royal Malaysia Police didn't comment, but Dyson also interviewed Mr. Limbu and refunded his flight home. They told us his story was one of the reasons they cancelled their contract with ATA.
Dai Kumar Limbu isn't the only worker who's made allegations of mistreatment against ATA Industrial. We've spoken to a number of others who've told us about the appalling conditions in hostels, about excessive hours, intimidation and violence.
Mr Limbu and 13 others are now being represented by the lawyers Lee Day, who intend to file a claim against Dyson in court, accusing the company of negligence.
Our clients allege that they work under conditions of forced labour and in unsanitary and crowded accommodation, and they lived under the constant threat of punishment and persecution by the factory management if they didn't adhere to what they wanted them to do. Dyson depicts itself as a very responsible company and ethical, but when allegations are put to them, they then tend to try and shut that down instead of taking the responsible approach and trying to improve conditions.
Dyson categorically deny that they failed to act responsibly or covered anything up. They insist that they only obtained concrete evidence of serious problems at ATA when they commissioned their final audit, which was delivered in October last year.
We asked to see that report, but Dyson declined. They told us it substantiated some of Andy Hall's claims. It found ATA was employing irregular workers. Some had had their passports and documents retained. It also found ATA hadn't reimbursed some worker recruitment fees, and there were concerns about excessive hours.
म आफैले पनि अब जुन कुरालाई मैले भोगेर आएँ यो मलेसियामा पुलिसको कुटाइ खाएर अनि उनीहरूले यसरी त्यो कारणले चाहिँ म धेरै मेन्टली डिस्टर्ब भएर अनि यो आएर यसरी ऋण गरेर आउनु पर्यो अनि यी कुराहरूको चाहिँ केही राहतहरू चाहिँ पाउन सकिन्छ कि भनेर चाहिँ उनीहरुसँग यो कानुनी रूपमा लडेको हो.
ATA is now in the centre of a storm. After losing its biggest customer, its share price plummeted 80%, and it's been charged with violating the country's labour laws on living conditions. In a statement, ATA told us they're committed to ethical business practices. The company denied its workers were subject to intimidation, that they retained workers' passports or employed illegal workers. They say they abide by pay and working hour regulations, although a few managers have allowed their workers to work beyond the hours allowed. They told us worker accommodation met the required standards. The company is confident that with the range of improvement actions taken, it is compliant with all regulations and standards. Meanwhile, Dyson is now facing legal action. Britain's favourite vacuum maker left having to clean up its reputation.
Darshana Soni with that exclusive report. Well, I'm now joined by Michelle Shi, who's Global Manufacturing and Procurement Director at Dyson in Singapore. Thank you very much for coming on the programme, and I appreciate you staying up until 3 in the morning to answer these questions. And they are serious questions. So let me start with this. Dyson is a company that Brits are incredibly proud of. How on earth did it get to this?
Firstly, thank you for having me tonight, Matt. What we have seen and what your viewers have seen are serious and are concerning. However, they don't represent what Dyson stands for. Dyson has high standards in our corporate social responsibilities, and we stand behind that. And I think in your own report, you talked about the audits that we have done and the proactive actions we've taken with the ATA industries as well.
But it took you a long time. I mean, the audits, sorry to interrupt, but you started the audits in November 19, and they went on until last year. But it's only in June of 21, so 18 months later, that you discovered there was a problem. I mean, what took you so long? These are really serious allegations. How come your audits, of which there were 5 at the beginning, didn't pick any of this up?
Well, 2 years between 2019 and 2020, the 6 audits we did, 2 were internal and 4 were by internationally recognized audit bodies. And every finding in the audit reports we proactively drove improvements with Arta Industries. And it's only when Arta Industries were not making those improvements at a timely manner that we wanted, we terminated their contract. We made the ultimate sanction to actually terminate the contract.
Right.
And it's a great question, Matt.
You only terminated the contract in November of last year. It took you 2 years to take that decision when the allegations were mounting up. So, and we know about this independent report, the big one that was done at the end. That's the one that led you to sever ties. Why on earth, when you release the results of that report, the full report on the table? We've asked you repeatedly, and you've said no.
Well, 2 years. I myself, who lead the global supply chain for Dyson, and my teams have been working through the improvements and driving the improvements with Arta Industry. And it's a very simple reason why we continuously to proactively work with them. They are thousands of workers in Arta's factory.
Okay, but why not release the report?
We simply
Where's
just
the report?
say, go.
Release the report.
Well, the report, we have the report, and Dyson works on the report.
Yeah. And we'd like to see it.
That is why we took the actions.
Okay, but we'd like to see the report in the interest of public disclosure. You want to clean up your image. There are very serious allegations made against you. It took you a long time to, after 5 audits, to actually get to the one that finally severed relations with ATA. Why not just release the whole thing?
Well, the welfare of the workers are our uttermost important priority, and that is why we've been working with them, working on the actions, rather than just run away from the problem. We address the problems other people ignore, and that's the right thing to do, Matt, and that is the responsibility we took.
Michelle, if the welfare of the workers is your uttermost priority, as you say, don't they deserve some compensation?
Well, Matt, the legal matter I cannot comment, but we stand behind our corporate social responsibilities, and we have worked proactively with Arta to drive these actions, and we now have taken the ultimate sanction on Arta as well.
Right. The average Dyson vacuum cleaner I checked online is between, I don't know, 180 quid and 500 pounds, top of the range. You're paying your workers, you were paying your workers at Arta £9 a day to produce this product. £9 a day. They worked a 6-day week before they worked a 7-day week. I mean, how is that humane, frankly?
Well, our products are the result of the technologies and the innovation we put into our products. And we very much are a global company, and we are in the global supply chain. And we very much want to be competitive in every market we're in, and in every market, not only just Malaysia, but everywhere in the world.
But you paid your workers a pittance.
We want to be competitive.
You paid your workers a pittance, and 14 of these workers are now taking you to court over misconduct and abuse. That is hardly looking after the welfare of your workers, is it?
Well, I can't comment on the legal matter, but absolutely not, Matt. We have not taken the advantage of the workers. We stand behind our standards. We've worked proactively. We take action. We recognize our responsibility. And we are doing that. We were doing that. And we're going to continue to be doing that, because the ethical supply chain for Dyson is what we stand for. And that is also what we're going to continue to work on for the benefit of the people there.